What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Fantasy Flex Podcast. This is your fantasy preview for the divisional round of the 2023-24 NFL playoffs. I'm your host, Chris Raybon of the Action Network. Joining me is the number one most accurate fantasy ranker in the game, the odds maker, Sean Kerner. Sean, what's going on?
What's up? Yeah, so we had a great weekend, wildcard weekend, we crushed all our bets. But all of our DFS calls hit too. I gave out Jake Ferguson, Trey Palmer. You gave out Kareem Hunt, K. Dotton. So hopefully, if you listened last week, you took down some GPPs.
Oh, yeah. But we're going to right back to it. Keep it going.
Yeah.
We only got 7 games left, so should be fun. We got the full 4-game slate to talk about on this pod. So we'll get in, we'll go position by position. We'll build a lineup at the end. But before we get to that, just a quick reminder, if you haven't left us a 5-star rating and review yet and you enjoy the show, jump in and do that. You can win a free year of Action Pro or some swag from the Action Network store. This week's winner is Drew Dutchie. Thank you, Drew Dutchie, for the rating and review. You can email podcast@actionnetwork.com to claim your prize. Also, don't forget, Action Network Discord server for anyone who wants to join. It's free. It's a lot of fun. Sean has been in there giving out fantasy advice, sweating live bets with people, so go check that out. There's a link to join in the episode description. But let's get into the divisional round. We'll go the full 4-game slate up at DK. Let's talk through that. Quarterback, we'll go a value and a dart. It's kind of tough. Quarterback, it's like he's only 8, so we'll just talk through some quarterbacks here. But yeah. Who do you like to start us off for value?
Yeah, so I think Brock Purdy at 6,500 is a great value. I know you said you were high on him in our projections pod. I'm right there with you. I'm not sure why he's so cheap here. The Niners are around 10-point favorites, so maybe Purdy doesn't have to throw much, but that's been the case all year long. And Purdy's lived off high efficiency, low volume all year. So this spot's really no different. Jordan Love and the Packers offense could play well enough here to keep it close. I would not be shocked just given how well Love has been playing, including last week. Plus, Christian McCaffrey's been dealing with a calf injury. He's had a couple weeks now to rest up, so maybe he is closer to 100%. But if not, they might want to lean on Purdy just a little bit more here. It's been a few weeks since Purdy's played, so there's no recency bias. People aren't chasing a good game by Brock Purdy. So his rostership percentage might be a bit lower here just as a result. So the fact that you can get Purdy at 6,500 here is a no-brainer. He has a ton of stacking options. And, this is a great slate, but Purdy just sticks out like a sore thumb being at 6,500 here.
Yeah, absolutely. I love Purdy this week. Only thing, obviously, you have to monitor the weather. Probably going to get some rain, but the temperatures are going to be in the 50s. Winds, it's always kind of windy out there in Santa Clara, but we'll see if it's alarming. We'll obviously lower our projection, so be sure to monitor that. But I love Purdy as well. I think he's kind of that perfect sweet spot if you're not going to go with Lamar or Josh Allen. I think Brock Purdy is just perfect, who has a massive, massive ceiling in the spot. I'm going to go with Jared Goff here. Talked on the other pod, on the Action Network projection pod over on the Action Network podcast channel. We talked about Goff and, how I have his passing yards close to 280 for this game. He's averaging right around 270 for the year now. And, he is 6,300 against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The game's indoors where Jared Goff tends to thrive. Now, he does have some trouble with the blitz, so that is the only concern here. But in terms of DFS, we're just looking at the ceiling. And if Goff struggles early, that just means he'll have to throw more to catch up. So either way, I like it. Sam Laporta played his usual complement of snaps last week. Jamison Williams and Josh Reynolds are healthy. Looks like the only guy that's probably going to be out is Khalif Raymond. So Goff in a good spot against this Tampa Bay defense that, Detroit has struggled, or Goff, I should say, has struggled a little bit with the blitz, but nothing like the way Jalen Hurts has struggled. And that's why I ended up getting on the Bucs +3 last week. I'm on the Bucks again, but I do like Goff. I do like just the environment for fantasy points in this game, it being indoors while the Ravens game is outdoors, the Niners game is outdoors and could have some weather, and the Bills game, it's going to be freezing temperatures. So even though some people didn't know this game was going to be indoors, it is, and thus Jared Goff, love him. Looks like dart throws. Looks like you like somebody in this game as well.
Yeah, so love Baker Mayfield at the cheapest price of the week at 6K. I think he wasn't the cheapest. I think it was Mason Rudolph, but Baker was my dart throw because he just had such an easy matchup against the Eagles defense, and sure enough, he torched them. And this matchup isn't as good as the Eagles, but the Lions have allowed 340 plus passing yards now in 4 straight games, 2 of those to Nick Mullins. And Baker Mayfield, for as good as he played last week, he was let down by Mike Evans and K. Dotton, who had some really big drops. One of them was a Evans drop that was a potential touchdown. You and I both thought that initially James Bradbury made a great play on the ball, but that wasn't the case. Evans just dropped it. And he might have been down the one. He might have scored. Who knows? Because he didn't catch it. But either way, Baker almost had an even bigger game. So the fact that you can get him at 6K here and spend up elsewhere is very appealing. So Baker Mayfield, again, is my top dart throw this week at QB.
Yeah, I love him as well. I think this Lion defense has some issues in pass coverage. They are great against the run, so makes them a pass funnel. I believe they're finished the year number 1 in DVOA against the run. So, that pass defense is what you're going to have to attack. You could get a negative game script, but that will just help. I don't think there's anything overly prohibitive about this matchup. They'll get some pressure, might get a sack or 2, but even sacks, it's not the end of the world, because that just makes you have to throw longer passes to try to get a first down, as long as it's not on third down. So like the matchup all the way around. I think Chris Godwin, talked about him on the other pod. I think he'll have some advantages here. Evans could be on Sutton. That should be an edge for Tampa Bay as well. So like Mayfield, I'm going to go with Jordan Love, as a dart throw. He's a guy who, it's probably not going to be as efficient as it's been. San Francisco has been able to prepare for Green Bay. They've also been resting. Even though Dallas, had just all the pick sixes and, Micah Parsons, San Francisco, I think, is the more well-rounded defense. And it's probably going to be the more sound defense. But the San Francisco offense likely puts up a lot of points on Green Bay, which will put the pressure on Love to throw. He's got all his guys healthy in the receiving core. Christian Watson played last week. Wicks is healthy. Jaden Reed, Romeo Doubs, both tight ends, Kraft and Musgrave. Aaron Jones, obviously, maybe even get A.J. Dillon back this week. So Jordan Love really hasn't had a full complement of healthy receivers. Only threw 21 passes last week. Highly efficient, 16 to 21 for 272. Don't think it'll be that efficient this week, but the upside is still 400 yards, because like similar to Dak, like San Francisco could put up a big number on this Green Bay defense that is 26th in DVOA. So like Jordan Love as one of the cheapest options on the slate. All right, let's jump to a running back. Who you got for value there?
Yeah, so I like Dave Montgomery at 6,100. He's really like the cheapest of the tier 2 running backs. And, last week I thought the Lions might lean on Jahmyr Gibbs a bit more and give him more work now that we're in the playoffs. I couldn't have been more wrong. Not only did Monty see his highest rush share since week 13, he even had a higher routes run rate than Gibbs. And you had mentioned maybe they were just trying to throw the other team off just to break tendencies and things like that. But, there could be some signal there. So I'm still boosting Montgomery's underlying usage a bit higher this week than I had last week anyway. But, his touchdown odds specifically are going to be elevated this week. The Lions have the second highest team total. They're going to be playing indoors, have a bit of an easier matchup, maybe not on the ground, but either way, I think Monty does have a better chance of scoring a touchdown here than most weeks. And this is just a game where they could have a lead positive game script for much of the game. So that could just lead to more work for Monty specifically. So like I said, just the fact that he's the cheapest of the tier 2 guys that I think you could make a case for being a top 2, top 3 back is why I think Monty is a decent value this week for sure.
Yeah, there's a lot of guys in that range. They, like you said, they could all be, they're all in play. But I think Monty will, Gibbs is the more sexier play. Like, let's be honest here.
Yeah.
And so I do think because you have Rashad White, who has been, fairly consistent, because you have Pacheco, who probably, he's kind of an exciting play because he's going to be featured. You have James Cook against a defense that struggled against the run. You have all these other options. So I think from just from a tournament perspective, I think the amount of people that roster Montgomery will probably be lower than it should. And you're getting a lot of leverage, touchdown, because he's a touchdown guy too. So you're getting a lot of leverage on, if he can score and let's say Amon-Ra doesn't score and Gibbs doesn't score and even maybe Laporta, you're just getting a lot of leverage there with a guy who will see double-digit touches and is a decent bet for multiple touchdowns. So I like it. I just want to talk. So this is, it's a DFS pod. So my value is Christian McCaffrey, but the reason he's my value is because he literally is the top value for me on this slate. So he's 8,800, but I have him projected to score, upwards of 24 DraftKings points, whereas I don't have anyone else, hitting 21. So he's got a pretty big edge on the field. And then if in terms of his, projected points per dollar, I have him about 2.7x. Everyone else tops out around 2.5x, especially up in the stud tier. So I do think, we kind of mentioned it. One of the ways to kind of get around that glut of running backs is to go with a guy like Montgomery, who's probably going to be on the lower end of the ownership spectrum. But I do think Christian McCaffrey, it's worth paying up for Christian McCaffrey on this slate. It's playoff time. He's been rested. He sat out that week 18 game. He's good to go. This Green Bay defense has historically been pretty bad against the run. They do have to worry about all these weapons for the Niners in the passing game. So Christian McCaffrey's going to get his, and I do think he is a value, even though he is the highest priced player. And you have to kind of know when to fade and when to play these guys. I do think this is a good week to play CMC because there's just no one coming close in terms of the projected value, which is rare for somebody who costs as much as he does. So
he's like
CMC against Green Bay.
He's like 10 points above my RB2 right now.
Yeah, it's absurd. So yeah, like CMC, but where are you going for dart throws?
Let's go with Ty Johnson at 4,200. Not many quality dart throws on a 4-game slate, but I think Johnson could be worth at least a flyer or two at 4,200. He's typically going to spell James Cook on early downs when he needs a breather. Ty has been banged up a bit lately, but he's closer to 100% now, which is why I think they cut Leonard Fournette. So he no longer has the threat of like Leonard Fournette being active and mixing in, taking away some of his few touches. Plus, this is a good matchup against the Chiefs defense that's more of a run funnel one. So he could end up seeing a spike in usage just based on the matchup. And I mentioned, but he ran the ball on all 7 plays of their last drive to put the game away. He had a couple of nice 9+ yard runs on that drive, even though the Steelers knew that the Bills were running the ball. He looked really good in that. And it's been surprising just how often the Bills do trust Ty Johnson in some really high leverage situations. I mean, the game was pretty much over, but the fact that they were willing to give him the ball so many times, he might fumble it, could make the game interesting. They were still willing to give him the ball means that, he could see, high leverage situation like a goal line carry if it does come up here. So either way, just take a couple of flyers on this guy. Don't go crazy, but Ty Johnson at 4,200 kind of sticks out as, one of the better options of those really, really cheap guys.
Yeah, absolutely. He's he's been that clear number 2 guy. It looks like Murray, Murray really doesn't get carries anymore, only plays on them passing downs. Fournette, I guess, they went back to having him as a healthy scratch. I guess at this point, he's only going to be active if something's up with Johnson, or maybe they make Fournette active for Murray, but either way, it seems like
I
Johnson's
thought
kind
they
of.
just dropped his ass. I think he's like completely off the roster.
Oh, he's
I
off the
could be
roster again?
wrong. Yeah,
Because
like
I thought he was
I think
like,
he's
let's see.
no, I think he's just toast, which is surprising to me. But
I mean,
I don't think he's being elevated again.
yeah. Oh no, he is officially
Yeah,
dropped from the practice squad. So
crazy.
so Ty Johnson's locked in, and Murray should be active unless they do that
Yeah,
weird thing where they like re-sign him and then elevate him. But I
who
doubt.
knows?
Yeah, it doesn't seem. I mean, they have all these injuries, so I don't think like having like a fourth running back on the active roster that's like a luxury
Right.
that they can't afford. They like half their defense got injured last week. So yeah, like Johnson, I'm gonna go with Justice Hill. He is the only guy in this range that I have. Like I have him significantly projected above like Edmonds and Pierce, Edwards-Helaire, even Johnson. He's 4,800, and the reason I like Justice Hill is in DFS is because you never quite know what Baltimore is how they're gonna use him, and for example, in week 1, when we thought it was going to be okay, it's going to be like the Dobbins and Gus Edwards show. Justice Hill carries 8 times for 9 yards, but 2 touchdowns. Doesn't get any targets. And then there was a game a couple weeks ago, week 17, carries 3 times for 48 yards, 5 targets for 64 and a touchdown. And then in that, we thought he was going to rest more than he did in that last game of the season against Pittsburgh. Doesn't get any carries, but gets 10 targets. Now he only catches 3 of them, but that's my point. He's just kind of one of these guys that in any given week he could be Baltimore's feature back. So like him in this spot. You also have the large spread. So, maybe if Baltimore gets up, they use him more. If they get down, they could also use him more. There's just so many different ways that Justice Hill could pay off. Kind of like reminds me a little bit of Kareem Hunt that I talked about last week, where it's not sexy. You never quite know how they're going to use him, but he's definitely going to see snaps, and he can catch the football. And they've also used him in the run game, and they've used him near the goal line at times as well. So like Justice Hill in his matchup against Houston. And I think he'll be another guy that's pretty under-owned because, if people – I feel like people like to – this is the first game of the week. So people are probably going to save like their flex spot or whatever and try to, do some game theory and have it open and kind of use somebody depending on how the first game or two goes. So, and maybe have like a Sunday guy in the flex. So I think having, your 2 running backs and then a guy like Justice Hill at only 4,800 in your flex, he's a guy that he's capable of, scoring 20 plus at under 5K at running back. You can't really say that about any of the other backs. I mean, maybe Mitchell if McCaffrey were to go down like early in the game or something, I guess, but that's really about it. But Justice Hill could absolutely, we've seen him score 2 touchdowns in a game when he's not the, the starting running back. So like me some Justice Hill against Houston. All right, let's jump to wide receiver. Who you got for value?
I like Rashee Rice at 6,800. He really stands out in that tier 2 of wide receivers. And, he continues to look better and better as the true number 1 wide receiver. Really, the guy they've needed ever since they moved on from Tyreek Hill. He's really starting to fill in those shoes. It's back-to-back 125 plus receiving yard games now. Just really looked incredible. And I think that, he's another player that could take advantage of the Bills linebackers just being decimated by injuries. If you look at his route tree from last weekend, I mean, a lot of it's over the middle. He's catching the ball 5 to 10 yards downfield and just racking up yards after the catch. So if the Bills are down 2, 3 linebackers, there could be some coverage issues there, communication issues. just bad tackling. So Rice is a player that, could take advantage of that. And he's only 6,800. I have him inside my top 5. So the fact that you can get him at that price, he has a high floor, high ceiling combo. So love getting Rashee Rice right now at 6,800.
Yeah, he stands out for me as well. And I love the fact that he's actually, being targeted close to the line of scrimmage, because he's getting like that 85-90% route participation rate, like a true number one receiver. But he's also, and he's being targeted at a high rate on a per route basis. But his targets are very easy to catch because they're not far down the field at all. So it's like you can project him for like 6-7 catches every game now. This is a game, again, Kansas City's first road playoff game in the Mahomes era. So we actually have Kansas City as an underdog here, which hasn't happened too much. So should be another good game for Rice. And this Buffalo defense a little bit banged up there. So and Rice moves around too. So I like Rashee Rice as well. Him and the player I'm about to mention are both, I think, excellent values. And it's Nico Collins. He is my wide receiver 2 on the week, actually, and he's not priced as the wide receiver 2. He's 7,100, so he's not quite as cheap as Rashee Rice, but he is the wide receiver 4 behind Amon-Ra St. Brown, Deebo Samuel, and Mike Evans, who are 8,200, 7,700, and 7,200 respectively. So I have Nico as a very good per dollar value. And then you look at this Baltimore defense, and it's been great, no bones about it. But Marlon Humphrey, their top corner, has an injury, and he's in danger of missing this game. He hasn't really practiced much over the past 3-4 weeks. So it'd be tough for him to kind of get out there. And even if he does, he might not be a full go, or he might not be 100%. So I don't think, Humphrey's been good when he's healthy and on the field, but I don't know if we're going to get that Humphrey in this game. And Nico Collins, 5 games with 100 yards and at least 1 touchdown, and at least 7 catches, 100 yards and a touchdown. 4 games with at least 146 yards on 7 catches and at least 1 touchdown. He's had 80 yards in more than half of his games. And he's had at least 6 catches in more than half of his games. And now, you remember, he was playing, there were games where Tank Dell was healthy. There were games where Noah Brown was healthy. So now it's really, he is the clear-cut number 1 target. You're talking about Houston as a 9.5-point underdog in Baltimore. So it could be a pass-heavy game script for CJ Stroud. So just love Nico, especially if Marlon Humphrey is out or less than 100%, which seems like the way it's trending.
Yeah, his target rate per route run has just been insane since Tank Dell went down, like around 35%, which is like Tyreek status. Yeah. So yeah, love me some Nico.
All right, what about dart throws?
Well, I'm going with another Texans receiver, a little bit cheaper here, but John Mechie at 3,400. Noah Brown and Robert Woods were both able to return to action last week, which was going to be a hit to Mechie's playing time. However, Noah Brown re-injured himself. He's on IR, done for the playoffs. And Robert Woods only played limited snaps, so he's clearly not 100% right now. So they're going to need Mechie to step up here. And I've liked Mechie. He hasn't really flashed too much so far, but he was a potential first-round pick before tearing his ACL towards the end of his last season at Bama. Went in the second round, but he's very talented, and CJ Stroud makes everybody better. So there's a chance that Mechie will break out any point. It could happen, this week against the Ravens. Obviously, it's a tough matchup, but it's going to be a pass-heavy game script. They might need to make some shorter area throws to a player like Mechie. So I think at 3,400, I think he has like a sneaky ceiling here. I don't think a lot of people are going to be on him. So John Mechie is one of my favorite dart throws right now.
Yeah, I agree. And his target per route rate hasn't been too bad. It's not like as low as a guy like who is it, Xavier Hutchinson for this team. It has been, let's see, what is it?
Well, in the season, it's around like 18%.
Yep, about 18%. It's higher, so it's just a smidge higher than Robert Woods, about a percentage point and a half lower than Dalton Schultz. So yeah, he's if he plays, because I think Woods re-injured himself. Woods will probably play, but yeah, Mechie has a chance to be the number 2 wide receiver this week, and if he played the same amount of snaps as Woods, for example, he'd actually be the favorite for targets. So he could be massively undervalued, and we saw him actually make a play down the field in that game against the Browns too. So he's, like you said, he could break out at any moment. So like that call. I'm gonna go with Josh Reynolds here. He's 3,700 at home against the Bucks, and he has been seeing an uptick in his usage rate with Khalif Raymond banged up, but Reynolds and Goff, remember, they have that chemistry dating back to their Rams days. So I'm not surprised that as the Lions get into the playoffs, that Reynolds is starting to see an uptick. He's on the year, he's averaging a 75% route participation rate, but the last 3 weeks, 78%, 91%, 97%. And last week with Raymond out, they didn't mess around with Donovan Peoples-Jones, Antoine Green. It was just Amon-Ra 97% routes, Reynolds 97% routes, Jameson Williams 87%. That Peoples-Jones 0, Antoine Green 0. So even if Raymond comes back, which I don't, doesn't look like he will, but even if he does, he'll probably be less than 100%. So I still expect Reynolds to push for upwards of 80% of the pass snaps, and you're going against a Buck defense that is, it's okay. It's not terrible, but it has been known to give up. It has been known to kind of bleed yardage, and I think being the only indoor game, being the number 2 receiver on the team with the quarterback, let's see. Yeah, I have Jared Goff projected for the most passing yards on this slate. So that's another, anytime you have like that, the number 2 receiver, I think, is going to be, an obvious, especially when he's not like a, clear cut stud or anything like that. So I think he's going to be able to overlook. I think Jameson will be overlooked as well, but as of right now, just because we're not 100% sure Raymond will miss, I have Reynolds as the clear, value of those two, because Williams is only 100 cheaper, but he's a nice pivot. And even if Raymond plays, I think that would actually, increase the value of both of them, because then, people might not want to roster them as much and say, hey, maybe they're not going to get that same snap rate. But Reynolds has the upside to play just as much as Amon-Ra St. Brown. So that is always something that I'm going to target in DFS. So like me some Josh Reynolds. All right, let's jump to tight end. Who you got for value here?
Similar to your Christian McCaffrey value, I'm going Travis Kelce, who is $6K. He's the most expensive tight end, but it is much, much closer than it used to be, which understandably, this is, one of Kelce's worst seasons. He's clearly starting to fall off a bit, not quite as dominant. Had a couple of really ugly drops last week, but that could have been due to the weather, so I'm willing to forgive him. I don't think that's going to be an issue going forward, and he still managed to get 7 catches for 71 yards. So, Mahomes is clearly just leaning on him and Rashee Rice now that they're in the playoffs. The fact that he's 6K, I still have him about 3 to 4 points higher than my number 2 tight end, so not quite as much of a drop off as McCaffrey, but it just goes to show that he is still, in tier 1 by himself. Plus, I've mentioned the Bills linebackers are decimated. They could be without 2 to 3 to 4 of their starting linebackers, so that's just going to make the matchup that much better for Kelce. So I think he still has massive upside at 6K, so willing to take him, and I think he's a really good value right now.
Yeah, he's my top value as well. And I mean, drops, part of the fall off has just been, I think he's a little bit in his head. Like a lot of it has been drops, like he's still is shown the ability to draw double digit targets. Maybe he's not quite as fast as he once was, but I think the one of the major issues really is just the drops. But his yards per catch is lower. I think it's season career low, right? Yeah, it's 10.6. So he's obviously slowing down, but you're still talking about like a yard and a half per catch. It's not massive. He still averaged 66 yards per game during the regular season, and then put up 71 in his first playoff game, and that was with the 10 drop, with the 3 drops. So could have had an even bigger game. So yeah, I like kind of buying low, if you could call it that, on Kelsey. I'm gonna go with George Kittle at 5,200. He's my next best value. I actually don't have quite as much separation as you do. Well, were you talking about half or full? Were you talking about DK scoring or
DK scoring? Yeah.
Yeah, I have only about 2 points separating, just over 2 separating Kelsey and Kittle. So Kittle is a really good value as well. Talked about this on our player projection pod over on the Action Network podcast channel, but Kittle has home road splits that favor being at home. 87 yards this season per game at home, 46 on the road, 5 touchdowns in 7 games at home, just 1 in 9 games on the road. And then in his career, he's averaging 69 yards at home, 59 on the road, with 0.44 touchdowns per game at home, 0.32 touchdowns per game on the road. Green Bay also 26 in DVOA against tight ends, and Dallas tight ends 11 catches for 100 yards and 3 scores, all by Ferguson last week, a 25% target market share for Cowboy tight ends last week. So it's a good potential blow up spot for George Kittle. Who you like for dart throws at tight end?
I like Brevin Jordan at 2,700. There's not much to choose from once you get outside, starting tight ends, but I think he might be a sneaky backup tight end to take. He's continuing to see around 30 to 35% route participation rate. He had that long touchdown catch last week, so unfortunately, I think people will chase that a bit. But he's a really good athlete, has pass catching upside. I think he just continues to mix in here, and this is a game where it could be a pass heavy game script where someone like Brevin Jordan could see a spike in targets. So I think he's the top cheap option under 3K. He might be the only option you can really consider under 3K, but I think Brevin Jordan has enough upside to at least take some flyers here at 2,700.
Yeah, he's been really good against man coverage. So if Baltimore does continue to play man, he's averaging, I believe it's like 3.5 yards per route against man coverage. Obviously a small sample, but he has played well. He's been beating linebackers and doing what he's supposed to do. So like him as well. I'm gonna go with Cade Otton here, our guy, Cade Otton. And obviously it's not as good of a matchup as it was last week against Philly, who just really struggled against tight ends. But when you just look at this slate and you go up and down the list at tight end, when you start getting to that price range, Luke Musgrave is 30. Dalton Schultz is 4,400. He is the tight end 7 in terms of pricing on DK. Likely could be overpriced if Andrews plays, and so he's at 4,700. Then there's a big gap. Then you have Musgrave, who's probably not even gonna be the number 1 tight end for the Packers at 3,600, and then you have Otton at 35, and then Kraft at 31, who is another guy kind of splitting snaps. So I think Otton is in that sweet spot where he's gonna be on the field pretty much every single pass snap. His rate of pass snaps played have been between 98 and 100 in the last few weeks, and really all season long. So he's not going to come off the field. You have the potential, a lot of different ways it could hit. Tampa Bay could go down early and have to throw. Tampa Bay could just have its way with this shaky Lions pass funnel defense. So like Otton here, just because I think you're just getting so many more routes per dollar compared to everyone else in his price range, and it's really not even close. All right, let's build a DraftKings lineup for the 4-game slate that we just discussed. I'm pretty sure I went first last week, so you can have first.
I think I went first last week.
Nah, I think I went first and took a defense, and then you took Robinson second.
Oh, okay, yeah, you're right.
Yep.
All right. Damn, should I go with a defense here first? Let's see if there's anybody. I'm gonna go with a. Actually, I'm gonna potentially steal who you were going for. I'm gonna go with Christian McCaffrey, most expensive player on the board, and I'll figure it out after that. No problem spending down.
All righty. I'm gonna go with. I got to go with Brock Purdy. He's my top quarterback value, and 6,500, where you have Allen at 8K and Jackson at 79, and to kind of counteract your McCaffrey, hopefully a little bit.
Yeah, we'll have minus 340 to score a touchdown. So let's see. No, I didn't take it. That's what the market's saying. I would never bet that. I'm going to go with the defense. Get ahead of it a little bit. I'm going to take the most expensive defense, but I think it's for a good reason. The Ravens against the Texans. Hate to be, like betting against CJ Stroud here, but there's not many good options this week. Every offense this weekend's pretty damn good. So I'm going to just take the well-rested Ravens, and hopefully, CJ Stroud makes a few mistakes here, and they pay off their 3,500 price tag here.
It's not too bad. I mean, Stroud just hasn't thrown picks, which is not ideal, but they could still get sacks and whatnot. All right, I'm gonna take your buy low. I'm gonna go with Travis Kelce at tight end at 6K. It's like him. I mean, I like him. I like Kittle, but Kelce as an underdog, and he caught 7 of 10 targets and dropped the other 3 last week. So I'm a little intrigued here.
Yeah, I was definitely gonna go that route. So I'm gonna have to scramble now. I'm gonna have to spend down at some point, so I'll just take John Mechie at 3,400. I realize I just took the Ravens defense, but I think this is perfectly correlated. If Stroud throws interceptions or pick sixes, they're just gonna have to throw more. So no problem using Mechie. Who I should add, he has a knee injury. He's limited in practice. I'm hoping he'll play, but who knows? It wouldn't be the first time I've had a guy not play, but I think Mechie will suit up, and he's well worth it. He's 3,400, so I can't pass this up.
All right. Let's see. I'll go ahead and I'll grab Nico at 7,100.
All right. I'm going to go with Josh Reynolds at 3,700.
Nice.
I'm right there with you. He's a great dart throw. There's less dart throws we can take than like really good value up top. So I'm trying to scoop up these like cheaper guys right now, because I'm now finally got it back up to 6,100 per player remaining.
Yeah, I'm at 50-66, but I didn't take my defense yet. So.
Oh, true. That'll help.
Yeah. I'm gonna take my second chief. I'm gonna go with Rashee Rice at 68.
Damn it. Yep, that's a good one.
Pass up. One of him and Kelce should go off at least. So.
Yeah. Both.
Right. Hopefully, yeah.
All right. Well, yeah, I'm gonna lock in my quarterback. I know you have yours. This probably isn't a good strategic move, but gonna do it anyway. But I do like Jared Goff as well. I'm a little bit lower than you on his passing yard projection, but not by much. And I agree, he has the highest passing yard projection of the week. So I think he has a ton of upside for a guy that's 6,300. Obviously, he's not going to run the ball, but like taking him here and stack him up with Josh Reynolds.
I like it. Okay, let's see. I'm gonna let's go with the Chiefs defense in Buffalo. like the price at 2,700, and Buffalo, even though they are a bit run heavy, I still think they could. Josh Allen's still capable of turning the ball over. So at 2,700, it's a fair bit below some of these other defenses, and they're only like 2.5 3-point underdogs. So we'll go with KC. So now I'm up to 52.25 average with
there you go.
four left.
Creeping up. I'll take a correlated play with that, and this goes against some of your other players, but I'll take Isaiah Pacheco.
Mm-hmm.
So hopefully he gets going. Every touchdown he scores will not be a Rashee Rice or Travis Kelce touchdown. So doing some reverse correlation here, but I'll go with Pacheco. So I have right around 6K per player remaining.
All right, so I need to find another cheap guy. Let's see. Yeah, I'm gonna do I'm gonna go tight end in the flex here because I think the way I'm building the lineup, this is gonna be my best value in the flex, and that's Cade Otton. So I'm gonna go with him at 3,500 against the Lions and hope to strike lightning in a bottle twice.
All right. Well, I'm going with another. Let's see. Yeah, this will work out. I'm going to go with another cheap receiver. So I'm really hammering this 3,600 to 3,800 range. I'm going with Khalil Shakir, who I think has just looked really good lately, and they'll lean on him once again here. So my three receivers are all below 4K. That's just the way I see this slate shaping up. I think this is a really good value range at the wide receiver position this week.
Yeah, absolutely. I was thinking of Shakir actually I was kind of calculating who I had better value. It's pretty much neck and neck. So Otton was cheaper, so I just ended up going with him. But yeah, Shakir is right there. Okay, I need some running backs. I have 5,800 average for 2 running backs and wide receiver. I'll take my first running back. Let's go James Cook at 6,300 against KC in that bottom 6 run defense.
Nice.
At 6,300. So now that leaves me at 5,550 for a running back and a wideout.
All right, so I am finally going to get an expensive receiver, the most expensive one, in my flex slot. I'm going with Amon-Ra St. Brown at 8,200. I think, like every position this week, except for maybe quarterback, the top price player is actually offering a ton of value. I think with heavy blitz coming up here, Amon-Ra, he typically sees even more targets when Goff is facing the blitz. So I have a Goff, Amon-Ra, St. Brown, and Josh Reynolds stack going here too.
I like it.
And I have 5,900 left at tight end, which means I can take any tight end really outside of Kelce because he already took him.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I got 2 tight ends already, so yeah, I can't take any more than that.
Exactly.
All right. Okay, yeah. Okay. I have a running back and a wide receiver and 55-50 average or 11-1 total. So I was checking out some different combinations, and I think the one that's going to make the most sense here. Double check that real quick. Yeah. All right. Yeah. So I'm going to go with Rachaad White as my RB2. Well, he's really my most expensive running back. But yeah, he is 6,500 against the Lions. And I saw Chase Edmonds is popped up on the injury report, missed some practice. He's probably good to go, but that could mean an extra couple of snaps for White, especially if Tampa Bay gets behind. They've been having some positive game script where they can kind of shuffle White in and out a little bit more, but I like the snap rate. So going with him at 6,500. So I got 4,600 remaining for wideout.
All right, so I have 5,900 left. Tight end left, so can't take Kelsey because he's 6K. Plus you took him, so I have access to every tight end right now except for Cade Otton. Sam Laporte is 5,900. I think that is way too expensive considering he isn't 100%. So yep. I'm going to go with George Kittle at 5,200.
My guy.
And leave 700 on the board, which I think is fine for like a weird slate like this and being in a battle where, you're taking some of my players that I wanted. So that's my team with 700 left over.
Yeah, that's pretty impressive. You got Amon-Ra, Christian McCaffrey, and still managed to have 700, and the Ravens defense that you still managed to have.
Have you seen my receivers? That's how he did it.
Oh man,
it is not pretty, but that's what you got to do. It's called stars and scrubs for a reason,
Yep, and so I took Rachaad White with the I knew you already had your wide receivers. So there's only one wide receiver that is exactly 4,600, and that's Odell Beckham, and that's what I'm going to take. I thought about Christian Watson just as kind of like a random variance type of play, but he is questionable. You never know with him and the setbacks. And I mean, Beckham is kind of like that too, but remember, Beckham's been kind of bubble wrapped all year. And what did he do last time he got to the postseason on a new team? He went completely off with the Rams. So this is Odell Beckham's time to shine. He's averaging 1.8 yards per route against zone, which is pretty solid. I think he has a chance to, eclipse his average of a 60% route participation rate. He could be, the first game of the year, he actually played 100% of the pass snap. So there's a chance that with the playoffs here, Beckham goes to like a true, 85% wide receiver too. I'm not saying it's likely, but it's in the range of outcomes for Odell Beckham, as is just, going off with, Houston has Stingley. Maybe they would obviously have to, if they're going to do anything with him, it would be Zay Flowers. So I like Odell Beckham. I think the market is a little bit low on him too, but he's just a really hard projection because you don't know how many snaps he's going to play. But I do like him for this format because he's kind of in no man's land here too. Whereas like Wicks is 49, then Beckham 46, and then Watson 42. So he's the only player between like a $700 tier. So Odell, and I have zero salary remaining.
Nice.
All right, let's recap your team. Who you got?
So I have Jared Goff as my quarterback. My running backs are Christian McCaffrey and Isaiah Pacheco. My wide receivers, I went ultra cheap. All three guys below 4K, and they are John Mechie, Josh Reynolds, and Khalil Shakir. But then I did spend up for wide receiver in my flex with Amon-Ra St. Brown. My tight end is George Kittle, and my defense are the Ravens.
Wow, that's a very interesting lineup construction.
I know.
I like it.
It kind of all worked out.
Yeah, and like it has just so much leverage. Especially with like you have Mechie, I'm sure he'll be lower than like Nico Collins and maybe even Schultz and Singletary, and then you have Reynolds and
who we're both high on. I can't imagine Reynolds' rostership being that high, but we're both really high on him.
Yeah. So that's and you have Kittle at tight end, who I really like. Yeah, I like that squad.
Yeah.
I got Brock Purdy at quarterback, 6,500 against Green Bay. Running backs are Rachaad White, 6,500 at Detroit, and James Cook, 6,300 home against the Chiefs. Wide receivers, I got Nico Collins, 7,100 at Baltimore. Rashee Rice, 6,800 at Buffalo, and Odell Beckham, 4,600 at home against the Texans. Two tight ends, Kelsey is my most expensive. He is 6K at Buffalo. Cade Otton, 3,500 in my flex at Detroit. And actually, let me put Kelsey in this flex. You always want your latest starting player in the flex, just so you have maximum lineup flexibility especially with games going on both days. So let me switch that. But yeah, so K. Dotton 3,500 at Detroit is my second tight end. He'll be in the tight end spot. Kelsey will be in the flex, and then I have the Chiefs defense, just kind of punting defense with a good all around unit. 2,700 at Buffalo. I left zero salary on the table, but I feel like I got a pretty solid lineup with Odell as the wild card and some high floor guys.
Yeah.
So I'll roll with it. All right, that is gonna wrap it for our fantasy preview episode of the Fantasy Flex for the divisional round of the 2023-24 NFL playoffs. For more fantasy content from Sean and I, you can check out our full player projection episode that's out right now over on the Action Network podcast channel, actionnetwork.com for all of our NFL betting and fantasy content, as well as fantasylabs.com for our DFS tools and models. Don't forget Action Network Discord server. Link will be in the episode description. And check out the newest feature of the Action Network app, Fantasy Sync. Links for both the Discord and to set up Fantasy Sync are in the episode description. You can find Sean on X at @_oddsmaker. I'm at Chris Raybon. And of course, we're at those same handles on the free award-winning Action Network app. Until the conference championship, let's get this shmoney.